All right, diving into Web3 gaming today, we're going to be talking with Illuvium and get a one-year update on where this project is. I think you guys will like it. Do not miss this one. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today, of course, is none other than one of the people over there that has helped kind of create Illuvium, and that is Grant Warwick. We've had Kieran on the show, but welcome in, Grant. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's exciting to be on here.
Yeah, I remember
the one you did with Kieran. So
yeah, we had Kieran, and then Andrew Wall's been our show. So we've had a few people from Illuvium. If you guys have not checked out some of our Illuvium videos, jump over to our YouTube channel. You can kind of check the last one that we had that really focused. That one was about a year ago. So we're going to catch some updates here right now. 1 year later. 1 year later, the beta review, of course, happened. I want to get into a slide, and these are kind of our wish list for Illuvium, and I want to get your opinion and maybe an analysis on whether or not any of this stuff is possible for Illuvium.
Sure.
And these are the wish list and improvements that we're looking at. So huge learning curve for mainstream Pokemon audience. This is just kind of getting to the state of the gameplay. More battle modes or mini games. And then overworld feels like we need more action in there, and gameplay. And then IMX is still, as I think a lot of gamers know, that's kind of a sealed garden out there. What that might look like, and then cross-platform, mobile, browser, console, etc. What does that look like? Creator economy, personalized NFTs, and then more personal interactions with Illuvials. With that kind of line list of stuff, is there some things that you guys are working on right now to address these issues?
Every single one of those things on the list. The number one update we've had over the last year is just now recently, this last week, we've gotten out our PvP mode, our competitive auto battler, and that was probably the most critical release we've had since starting, because up until that point, it's very hard to get user attention without multiplayer. And even though we felt like the survival mode that you were talking about a year ago, which feels like 10 years ago, was polished, it wasn't designed to have high retention. It was more designed to get people familiar with the gameplay mechanics. Now, having PvP out, we can really start to feel if what we've created is fun and if the game is going to hook in a whole new range of people from the Web 2 community. So that was the biggest thing. In terms of the overworld,
what has been
the feedback has been amazing. The feedback has been incredible, but we've always been like very harsh on ourselves. And the first few hours was all positive, but because the game is so early, there's obviously a lot of balancing that needs to be done. And we've, as the days go by, you have to, not get too overconfident with what you've created, even though it feels like a huge weight is off our shoulder. Now we have to make sure the game mode is balanced and that we listen to the community, because ultimately they're the ones who are putting in the tens of thousands of hours of playtesting hours. So we've already in this first week learned a lot of what we have to do to improve the game. And ultimately, though, the thing is that most people are having fun outside of a few balancing issues, which to us is like the holy grail. All we ever wanted to do from the very start was just create a fun game. We never felt like any of the crypto features were ever going to be taken seriously unless you had a fun game. And that was what we were trying to be a proponent of early on. Just make a good game first, and then all the other stuff comes with it.
But I think that obviously the scenario that you run into with, the platforms that you guys have chosen, when you look at the potential, especially, let's go into IMX or Immutable for a second. When you look at Immutable's walled garden, and I've had this discussion with WAGME and many other game makers of being able to really kind of come outside that and become truly interoperable. What is the likelihood of you guys maybe going down that track in the future?
In terms of, sorry, I don't fully understand the question.
Well, all right. So on IMX, just being able to be interoperable, not necessarily just living inside the IMX ecosystem as a whole. Possibly looking at cross-chain, things of that nature.
Right. Well, I'll be totally honest. I've been far less involved with the technical implementations IMX has over, say, the art and graphics updates on the game. I know that we are currently working with them very closely to try and make sure that the onboarding process is as easy as possible for gamers. And the thing we're trying to stress to them at the moment is to make it seamless so people from the Web 2 industry don't feel intimidated. Sorry, I'll be totally honest with you. I couldn't give you a super technical answer on
not a problem.
IMX side of things.
Let's talk about Epic Games a little bit. How has that gone so far as the launch?
It has been amazing. That has been such a huge, I think when we launched that news, a lot of people weren't aware of it. And up until a month ago, even we weren't aware of it, because when you're trying to get onto a platform like that, there are a lot of legalities and potential blockers in terms of like rating systems, and they were amazing to work with. They were super progressive with allowing us to do this. And ultimately, they take a large risk because the user sentiment in Web 2 isn't that great at the moment. And by allowing NFT and blockchain games onto their platform, without there really being any proven AAA cases or games, it's a big risk for them. And so we're very proud to work with them. We love the game engine that they've built. I think that hopefully we can make this partnership beneficial for everyone in the crypto space and prove that crypto games do belong on Web 2 platforms like Epic Games.
What is the measure of success there for Epic in terms of, let's say, 6 months down the road? What would you say? Okay, we've achieved this much, whether it's, interactivity, engagement, downloads. What would it be that you guys are looking for?
If you ask me personally, I feel that right now we don't have the blockchain and NFT side hooked up to the game. Right now it's completely free to play and there are no blockchain elements to it. For me, ultimately, the holy grail is staying on a platform like that with an active marketplace, because as soon as you hook the blockchain up, that's where I'm just being completely honest here.
No, right? I totally agree.
I think I could sit here and I could sit here and lie and say that everything's going to be great till the end of time. Right now, we're a free-to-play game with no blockchain elements integrated, and I think that was the best way to do it for Web 2 players to not feel intimidated. But there are going to be challenges definitely in the future when it comes to having a live marketplace. How do we handle that? How is that perceived? Is there backlash against Epic Games for that? And how do we overcome that? And so we're definitely not out of the woods yet, but ultimately
what has been the kind of the engagement with you guys in Epic around this topic? Because I think a lot of Web 2 companies that are understanding, at least from a platform side, they're starting to see some things that kind of cross over into what could be NFTs. I mean, we've got Roblox talking about the potential for this. The likelihood of something maybe within Grand Theft Auto. There's some things kind of brewing that could happen there, at least in their online version. What's Epic's dialogue with you guys around that issue?
At this stage, there was just a lot of legal hurdles to overcome. And Vic, our head of legal here, has been responsible for getting us onto the platform. And like I said, we weren't sure that we would get on up until about a month ago. Right. And there are projects that were NFT enabled that were taken off of Epic Games, and there are projects that have also struggled to get on due to ratings and the blockchain integration. Maybe end up getting on other platforms and convincing, like Steam, the other major game release platform, they don't allow any NFT projects on their platform. And that's because of the huge backlash that, crypto games got with a lot of the scam tokens going around. To me, I think like the long-term goal is for us to be able to get on a platform like that as well and just convince people that not every project in crypto is a scam or
it's interesting because I look at these platforms much like if you think about what Apple has done with the way they govern over just apps that go in the App
Mhm.
Store. And
Yeah.
if you had
Yeah.
that kind of, I mean, if Epic or Steam, if they really went in and looked at the projects, you could quickly discern which ones are bad and which ones are potentially good
Yeah.
and what could be leveraging.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't seen that
Yeah.
just yet. And the excitement around it, at least in terms of Web3 gaming, it's real. I mean, we are seeing real excitement out there around these games. So what do you think the future is here? Is it how long before you see this?
Well, we just partnered with Team Liquid, and they're the #1 esports organization on Earth. They have a $500 million valuation, and they have competitive teams and in multiple games winning world championships. And we are now partnered with them. They play tested our game. They could have just decided not to do the partnership with us,
Right. Yeah.
but they exactly like you said, they looked into our project. They made sure that they vetted things correctly, and they came to the conclusion that it was a fun game that their players may enjoy long term. So ultimately, and a lot of the feedback on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now, it was super positive around that, and people were starting to come around to the idea that, hey, maybe blockchain gaming has a chance, because a year ago when Kieran spoke to you, it was kind of in the dark pits
It was still early.
of a bear market. Yeah, still super early. And yes, it's still early. And yes, I can't say for sure that there's anything amazing in the space. That's even us, we've still got a long way to go, but it is going to get there eventually. I think one way or the other, the blockchain technology that's available on projects like ours is definitely the future. There's no way around it. You just need good games attached to it.
I would agree. I look at it, at least from the Web3 side of things. I mean, if you look at for an example, this is just a Mutascan showing activity. You guys still, you got God's Unchained, of course, #1, but Illuvium Land right there, Illuvatars, obviously, and then, Disc in there as well. So, but not a lot of activity, in terms of IMX in general. I think there's still, I would call you guys probably the #1 project in terms of games on IMX for sure. And I think that's my question, to the team there at Illuvium, is the ability to eventually hold Illuvatars in a wallet, like maybe a Solana wallet, like Phantom, something of that nature, truly to see that interoperability kind of go. What, in terms of the importance level of that, without all the technical side of it, just, from theory, where would you put that right now on your list?
I would say that sorry, it's a hard question for me to answer.
That's okay.
It's hard to say how important it is, because we haven't proven to ourselves that our marketplace will work, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost too early to answer that. We first need to. Yeah, I would say it's too early. We first need to prove and get blockchain integrated into our game, because that's where the interoperability really starts with our own ecosystem. We've built 3 different games so that they could be interoperable between themselves. And once that's the case, then I'm sure that we can push for IMX or other ecosystems to be able to incorporate our assets and go from there. But I've always been one to kind of just take it one step at a time. And I'm still not 100% convinced that our own marketplace won't have its own issues on launch. There's just going to be a lot of stuff to improve on as we go, because it's just never been done before. So
exactly. Let's talk about roadmap for a little bit. I want to get into a couple of points. Is social features, the potential for Web3. We're seeing a lot of social-fi that could be plugged into gaming. Is that something that would be potential for the future of the game?
We are internally, and I haven't shared this with anyone, but we've obviously, one of the feedbacks we got with our game was that it wasn't, it didn't have social features, so we're trying to work in multiplayer into our overworld. We're just in a limited way at the moment, trying to get players to be able to interconnect with each other, because realistically, if you're going in and, we're a collectible game, if you can't share the experiences and things that you own with other players, it loses a bit of that kind of magical feel of being a collector, like one of the cool things we've always said we're trying to become a modern Pokemon is, sharing on a schoolyard your cards with other players. So we definitely need to incorporate multiplayer into our overworld, and we've looked at that. We have testing done on that, as well as just a lobby feature in our game so that players can add each other from the Epic Games Store. All of that stuff is coming. But yeah, and Epic Games does have that. You can add players from your friends list on Epic Games, request matches and things like that. So all of that stuff is definitely going to come.
All right, so it's down the roadmap. In terms of we've seen a handful of games that have had success around companion mobile apps. Is that one that is on the roadmap for you guys?
100%. I think the biggest thing for us is once we can prove that Arena is in a good state, we need to port the game over to mobile. One of the questions we got asked early on is, how come you're not developing on mobile now? And that was one of my main decisions early on in the project, because I felt like people wouldn't take a crypto game seriously unless the graphics were on the level of what a Web2 AAA company was creating. We could have created a mobile game much faster and had a much broader reach to a much huger player base. And maybe the game would have even been far more profitable. But to me, that was such a huge risk, because how do you separate yourselves from every other mobile game out there? So by going into a niche PC market and proving that a blockchain gaming studio can make something on the same level as Web2 gets us on board with those players. And then if the game's fun, porting the game over is far easier once you've already got the foundation. And we've done internal testing. We've worked with an outsourced studio already to try and start that process. So that is something that will be coming. I'm not going to say by the end of next year, but definitely next year, early on, we will start that process.
All right,
we have
it right there.
It's the most obvious. It's the most obvious thing
on mobile. I like it. All right, so let's talk about VR, AR. And VR, AR. Andrew and I have gone back and forth on this. We had a pretty, I won't say heated debate, but debate.
Of course.
On AR, VR. Andrew is Andrew Wall. In case you guys don't know, he kind of runs some of the. What is Andrew's job there now? What does he do?
He is our head of production, right? So he's in charge of creating all of our videos, hosting our content. AMAs. And he's head of our content, and he's amazing at that. And he is good. He's an expert in that field. His setup might not be as good as yours, but I mean, there's levels
he's got
to
a
it.
Good one. Well, we've talked about AR, VR before, and listen, a year has passed since we had that conversation. Yeah. And I was hoping to have Andrew on here because I felt like we had an "I told you so" moment, in AR, VR, because I feel like there's enough there now. We have enough happening from the major hardware makers. Some of the biggest companies in the world have committed to AR, VR. Likelihood of having AI integration coming down the pipe for gaming in AR, VR is real. So now we're at a different state in the market. What is your opinion of AR, VR? Because I feel like your game is perfect for this.
I personally have purchased over 10 different VR headsets over the last, say, 12 years. I remember being on the very first Oculus Alpha release, and it's always been something that's been incredibly exciting for me. I have tested Illuvium in VR, and my only issue with having it set up and having the game set up for it is Unreal Engine isn't perfectly designed to work with VR, right? As a developer, you can't just flip the switch and make the game VR compatible, because you have to also be developing the game in VR to make sure that it's going to work. And I tried doing that. And unless you're using, I think it was the new Oculus system, it was, I have so many headsets. I'm trying to remember their names, but unless you're using a headset that's specifically designed to work with Unreal, it won't work. And you can try and work your way around it with plugins, but it is still quite difficult. I can promise you right now, if the latest like Pimax 8K headset worked with Unreal out of the box, I'd be jumping in tomorrow and developing it, because
so you feel
VR
is something. Your theory is it's still hardware limited. Still hardware limited.
Oh no, I think the hardware is definitely good enough now. It's the software, I guess you could say. They're actually getting it into Unreal, like making it like Unity and Unreal, having proper compatibility for developers. Because, you know, as developers, you sometimes get, I fully understand Epic's, you know, ability to not do everything at once, but like, you find out all the time, you get people in your community saying, why don't you do this? And you go, well, we would love to, but we don't have an extra like 20, 30 people to do it. For them to be able to do that, it's very niche still. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I remember it being like under 5% of their player base has VR. So you're still targeting a niche market. But I can promise you, if there is an update to Unreal Engine that incorporates one of the latest like 4K headsets where you don't like that are up to standard, we're going to be developing.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good to hear, because I think, you know, just being open to it is, to me, that's a good sign, you know, when you think about just game development as a whole.
I'm 100% on board with it. I've had friends over hooked up to wingsuit apps freaking out. So, like, I like it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, a couple of general news topics we're going to hit into. I want to get into kind of the gaming idea around ETFs, because there's some that have already started to surface in Europe, and I'm going to play a clip for you guys as well. Let's see if we can go to this clip real quick.
Blockchain gaming and the tokens related to it have become a bit more mainstream. So, for instance, CF Benchmarks, which is basically a regulated UK entity, Meta Labs have launched basically a GameFi index. And it now has a Bloomberg ticker that you can sort of figure out, which basically opens up the pathway to actually ultimately have game token related ETFs, for instance, as well.
All right, so a couple of things. That's Yatsu of Animoca Brands, but he was referencing this company right here, CF Benchmarks. And if you'll notice on here, this is what he's talking about, a GameFi index. This is in London right now in UK, but the potential of an ETF around gaming. And I mean, you got there's Axie Infinity, there's Decentral, Gala in here, Ape, Sand, etc. A lot of the normals, there's Chili's in there. Why not an Illuvium in something like this? I think this would be one of those that would be great. You guys should get on this.
I will hit up Vic straight away. And
say, Vic, get to work over here.
I 100%. And I actually think she has some communication with Animoca Brands at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know what on exactly, but I'll get her onto it 100%.
All right. So big news coming out. I think this just dropped, GTA 6 now trailer dropping on the 5th, it looks like. So just a couple of days away. And I mean, there's been a hint of NFTs. There's people around the crypto Twitter, crypto X that are kind of, I mean, what's the percentage? What do you think the percentage of a major studio dropping something that is blockchain related with an iconic game like GTA? What's the percentage?
I think 100%.
Oh, you think they're going to do it?
When though? When?
Oh, okay.
All right. Rockstar. Oh, I think they're crazy enough to do it. I think they're so big that, like, what can anyone say at that point?
Interesting.
Like,
okay.
If Elon Musk,
if anybody could do
it,
if anybody could do it, that's a good one.
If Elon Musk can just rebrand Twitter overnight, like if you said, if you asked me a week before that happened and said, what are the chances that Twitter's going to change their name and branding completely in a week's time? You'd be like, but then it happens. Look, if anyone can do it and just have, people are going to play that game anyway, right? How long's it been now since GTA 5? 7 years
10,
now?
10.
It's like the
10
years. 10 years since wow, I'm old. Wow, I didn't even know that the trailer was launching. That's got me excited. But like, if anyone could do it, they could. So I feel like from their perspective, if it makes sense, then realistically, what do they have to lose? Because I keep bringing this up.
Yeah, and you think about timing here.
So,
if you think about this, Grant, I mean, you know how long it takes to put a game together. I mean, they've spent a decade, putting a new version of this out. I mean, if they're going to do it, now would be the time, unless they go with, maybe a mobile compatible device that's going to eventually,
Sure.
integrate blockchain. Because in 10 years, everything's going to have blockchain. Let's just admit it. Everything will have blockchain.
Yeah.
So they would be behind. So, I don't know. Maybe they could lead the way.
You get the Web 2 space gets the Web 3 space gets so much flack just because of the scams that were associated with projects. And it's completely understandable. But when you really, really simplify the whole system down, when you have marketplaces, digital marketplaces around gaming IPs, it's totally possible to do it in Web 2, right? You can make an eBay for your game. But how do you distribute profits back to players? How do you cross multiple country financing laws and regulations? And
then you got the royalty aspect. Obviously, smart contracts play a huge role in that.
Yeah,
that's the other component. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. How does a company like Rockstar build a marketplace without it being built on the blockchain, without having major issues? So
not going to happen. It's a different story.
It is the future, and if they do that, game on, because there's a lot of stuff happening in the gaming industry right now that's like heating up
the market.
That would be.
We put out a video just
Fingers
for everybody
crossed.
watching. Yeah, we put out a video yesterday that gives you all the December updates. So check that video out. We had this on it along with others there's some key things happening in the gaming world in the next 30 to 60 days that are very significant. Obviously, many other things. But anyway, hey, Grant, it's been great having you on, giving us an update there on Illuvium. Tell the team over there we said hi, and we'll definitely get you guys back as things progress, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right, so you guys maybe are tuned into the podcast side of things. Don't do that. Jump over here to the YouTube channel. The reason is you get a chance to see all these amazing graphics, and especially when we do these gaming topics. So it's the perfect time to get over here on the YouTube channel. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. It's the number one way you guys can help spread the news about what's happening in Web3, gaming, and all the other things in blockchain. And best of all, follow me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.